Welcome to our last stage. So I looked it up. It is a torii gate, which is a traditional Japanese gate that goes in front of a Shinto shrine. And the idea is that as you're passing through the gate, you're passing from a space that's ordinary and mundane into something that's sacred and special. So I thought that was really nice because we're taking something very ordinary, our watercolors, and we're making something really special, our little paintings here. So let's talk about what we're going to do for our last little bit. I mixed up some black color first. I added a little bit of green, I added a little bit of red to it. I don't like to use straight black in general. One, because real artists don't use black, they make black. But secondly, regular black is pretty flat. And if I want it to feel in context of the colors I've just used, I need to give it just like a lean towards whatever color we've worked on. So we've talked about this before. Remember, when we were making gray, we talked about what color towards it leans towards. So your gray might lean towards blue, and so we mix up some orange to kind of pull it back. Or if it leaned towards green, we pull it back by adding the red. So I like to give my black a little bit of a lean. I'm going to give it a slightly green lean. So this is it. Do not be afraid. It's going to be great. You can start in any part that you want to. I'm going to start in the trees and these little rocks because it's the most area where I feel most comfortable, but it's really up to you where you want to go with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this big rock that kind of sticks out. And I have enough water in my brush, enough color, and everything underneath is really dry. So I'm just going to give myself a shape to start with, and I can add more color in if I need to. Think about the bottom as it goes along the pond here, and I'm just going to fill that in. And I'm not using high quality watercolors. The ones you guys have are probably much nicer than what I'm using here. So I might just take some straight black and add that in. My color already has a lean, but I really need to make sure parts of this stand out from other things, and adjust some of my shapes. I'm going pretty quickly. I don't care too much how perfect that shape is based on my picture. I'm just kind of making what I like right now. There we go. Now after I'm doing this, since I have my color and a little black to it, I'm going to mark off the trunk of this tree. And I'm using just the edge of my brush. And watercolor is made to be a really quick medium. I mean, not quick overall, right? Because you have to let things dry. But as far as making marks, you're making marks pretty quickly because you want to either cover an area or give the suggestion pretty quickly. And you might do the same thing that I'm doing, just kind of going back in and adding a little bit more black to it to kind of help deepen and saturate it. Adding the trunks of these trees, the branches. Here we go. All right, we are ready for some marks on tops of this tree. Now this tree looks different than the others, so you're going to need to kind of figure out what kind of marks that you want. If you have a practice paper, you're welcome to try on that. If you're like, hey, I'm just going to go for it, then just go for it. It is going to be darker. It's going to stand out a lot more. So don't worry too much about things. Just kind of get your shapes in there. You can always go back and layer up some stuff in there. I'm running out of color. I go back in, get some more. And I'm leaving some gaps between because it doesn't reach all the way down everywhere. So I'm leaving some gaps so that light's shining through, maybe a few leaves in here. Make it a little more sporadic. Now I might do that just as layer one and let that sit for just a minute. And then come back, add some details, which I think I will with just some pure black on top of that. Cool. All right, if you don't like your trunk, like I don't like my trunk, I'm going to fix it. And that's it. All right, so I might speed through the rest of this and not do a lot of commentary and just kind of map some things out, okay? You do the same, make the trees the way you want them, and we'll check back in just a second. Okay, I have my large trees in there. The last things I have are just some little detail areas around here, some bamboo right on the edge, and some bamboo over here. And of course, my temple gate. So I'm going to use a slightly different technique on this. Now you can decide you might want to wait and let this dry, or you can go ahead like I am. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm wiping off all the extra water off my brush. And I'm going to go into the black, and I'm going to use maybe just like a tiny bit of water, and just so the paint moves on me. All right, if your color's already wet in here, then you're good. And again, I'm just doing a little bit of a wiping technique to wipe up any extra. Now what that does is it gives me a lot of concentrated color right on the edge, and I can just paint in details with almost like a dry brush technique, so I know it's not going to move. And I can just go in here and just do some really quick detail areas. And I can do some streaks for bamboo. And I can do some extra leaves if I want some more texture up here. And notice these are like little tiny points of emphasis because the color is really concentrated, and I have the whole tree in there, but they're just like little pops. I can do an extra branch or whatever you decide you need in here, okay? Now this tree is not completely flat. The way I've painted it has some dimensionality to it. I can go back in, get any more color that I feel like I need. Just do a little quick dry brush technique. If I don't like this trunk being that light, I can go in and darken the trunk itself. I can use this to create sharper edges. You don't want the color to end up looking shiny and thick and stiff, but it's just enough to add some detail. Okay, so I'm gonna get my brush. Was a little too dry. I want the brush to be wet, but I don't want any extra, so I'm like wiping off the extra. Tiny bit of water on the edge. Swirl it inside the pan, get what I need. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna start this one with just some sticks of bamboo. I might make them turn. Oops, that one, bamboo doesn't do that. Okay, so again, any sort of marks that help it make it feel like you got some bamboo. They kind of point down. The leaves kind of stick out and point down. So just kind of consider a technique that you have that works for you. If you notice your color is getting light, just go back in right on the edge, get some more. If I look at them, they're kind of like in series of 3s or 5s. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying to think about odd numbers, like doing like 3, 5, just making a few marks. There you go. Again, if I want to add some texture to this tree, I can do the same. If I don't want to, I don't have to. Sharpen up the edge of this rock. Blend that in. Fade away. And one last little part. A little bit of bamboo right here on the edge. There's a lot of it over here. I might just do a couple because my space is really small. I'm doing this implied line where I just do a couple marks and let my brain kind of connect it. All right. We are going to stop this one here. We are going to do the gate as our very last video, but I really want this to dry so I'm not worried about messing up what I've done. Okay, watercolor is very challenging. Everything you've done so far, I'm so proud of you. Keep going. It's really tricky at first. Take your time. Please don't try and rush yourself.